By mistake, I was trying to clean my work tool here, and on this October 14th, and by mistake, I pressed the stop button. I'm here by where the wild grapes grow and by the highways, and this is part 2, the second part of October 14th event. Post Thanksgiving, I was just discussing my surviving that vicious surprise attack a few years ago when I was hit in the head a few times, and it was a vicious surprise attack, and I was bloodied up, and I hit my head on the floor, and in Montreal, on the island of Montreal. And I went to the Jewish General Hospital. I was discussing how I have to retrieve the documents from the Jewish General Hospital, and I have to, because I have 4 deadlines to meet by October 31st. By October 31st, I have 4 deadlines, one of which is to go retrieve the archives. So today being the 14th, I got 17 days, because I got 4 days to pay my phone bill, because I already paid my rent for the month of October, paid my electricity bill, paid my Netflix. I still got to finish watching Umbrella Academy Season 3 and Season 4, because I was so preoccupied meditating, and did a little bit of workout, did a little bit of rock and roll and some cleaning, some over the Thanksgiving shopping and all that I didn't watch. But I got a few days, I guess, a few weeks, as I gotta write some emails, invitations for collaboration for my dream, the Dancing Goddess in the Dragon Kingdom, which is fundamentally a dream for a public-private partnership across the North American Collective Civilizational Complex, of course, to be concomitant and imprudent, of course, in all the relationships where we are now, to be left and right and in the middle and all the sides. And here, please don't pollute. Please, please, please. And I also have to go retrieve my archives at the Jewish General Hospital. And of course, we got some beautiful flowers here. Hey, gorgeous little flowers. I gotta write those letters for invitations for collaborations, and gotta do a big cleaning of my room before October 31st, and the 4th one, I guess, in whatever order I do them, before October 31st. Maybe this one's gonna be on October 31st, Halloween, because I got those. I'm gonna dress up as Rainbow Dracula, Rainbow Vampire. I don't like saying Dracula much, because whenever I do, I get triggered by past lives, reincarnations, memory, one of which was I was under the orders of was a soldier in the Dracula's army. I was a soldier in Dracula's army, you know. So that is what it is with that, as I was a soldier in Vlad the Impaler, the original, the real, the originally. Vlad the Impaler, the original. And that's what it is now, of course, to be. Saluting the public workers who changed the aqueducts here, the firefighters, all this great work here, which they gotta be doing. I guess they're changing the aqueducts and the sewers, of course, and all those other things which they're doing concomitantly now. I gotta salute them a little bit. And my only stress now is financial, so maybe it's gonna be on Halloween, you know. Maybe it's gonna be on Halloween. See, that's French, that's what that says here. It says réaménagement. So this is basically, it's French, what it says here. It's doing the enterprise. This word here says remanagement. So basically it's refurbishing, investing in the redoing of the aqueducts. It's only French, but of course I don't mind providing translations on the go. It's super important to get those translations where we are now, of course, in the faculty of the appellations, of course, that Publik works across the 63 works for me, because it's always for the 10 to 50. And the 3, as I said before in part 1, that I am on my 4th rebirth. Because I died during COVID, I died when I moved, you know. I used to live in that moldy place, very moldy underground place, still on the island of Montreal. And I have trouble remembering my life prior to like winter 2014, January, February 2014, January, February 2014. It's a long time ago. That is a long time ago. Got a beautiful sky, you know. A beautiful sky with that, and that's just those dynamics which we have, of course, to be, but it's just something which we have, of course, now. But that is a beautiful sunset. So, because I don't want to waste nobody's time. Friends with benefits only for me, so it's either that or pledge your allegiance. Friends with benefits. I guess there's a closing of the gate there. We're gonna have to go around it, and beautiful bridge there, and between me, because I'm not just androgynous and pansexual, part of the LGBTQ community. I'm also part of the neurodivergence community. You know, I have Asperger's, HFA, high functioning autism, and I gotta pass by the side, you know. Gotta pass by the side. That's what it is with that. And so I gotta get doing with that. And they're doing a little bit of work in here. Public workers with a little bit of a beton. All of this. So we gotta encourage them to work a little bit of good and gotta get a little bit of that rock and roll, man. To getting on the drill, public workers, you know. And that's why we got a big building here, you know, the North American Collective. We got a lot of work to be done, and we got a lot of work to be doing on that arbeit, and that's why we gotta drill us there, you know. It's always for the bridges, and we gotta build bridges. This bridge is just beautiful. There's some beauty, I don't know, there's something just I love around this bridge. Something that I love around this bridge. Well, of course, I don't know which one is this bridge, but this is a beautiful bridge. Who built the bridge, I don't know, but I do know that it's beautiful, and we gotta build bridges, you know, small bridges, medium-sized bridges, large bridges, extra large bridges, you know. Those are just the bridges which we gotta build. Those are just the bridges which we gotta build, you know. Beautiful sunset and sunrises. And that's what it is with that, of course, in all the concomitantly appellatives and the appellatives. So watch when you drive it with a car. And now we're gonna turn here. Actually, we're gonna go all the way. Because we can't see. Now we have the lights. Because we have the lights there, of course. There we go. Now we're gonna cross it. Yeah, safely. It's better like this. Cross safely, you know, prudently, and be attentive. Turn your heads left to right. I'm not gonna go all the way to the sunset because the sunset is already now over the other side as well, of course. So that is just a beautification here. Look how beautiful it is, the autumn, eh? I love autumn, spring. Gonna take off my glasses, enjoy it even more. Wow. Beautiful sunset. Hey, the sun is always rising and setting, and you can see the colors, how they change. Quite fantastical. Just gotta love it, you know. Beautiful sky. Sometimes you just gotta appreciate, you know, the nature with that. And that's just what it is, man. You gotta appreciate nature, man. And here, you know, I love our winters, and that's what it is with that. And that's what it gets on the go, and so that's why we gotta get on the left and on the right, and gotta get it left, you know, for the civilizational context with that. And that's why we gotta get on that loving side of the equation, you know. I got love, I guess my Asp love, because I have Asperger's. So with HFA is one and the same. Asperger's and HFA are one and the same. So when I'm gonna use HFA, it's the same as Asperger's. You have to keep that in mind, that they merged in 2013, 2014 circa. They're one and the same. So when I'm making a reference or discussing this neurological mental divergent condition by which I am affected, by which I live with on a daily basis, and of course I've only accepted it a few years ago, 3.5 years ago, because since about 2016, for years and years and years and years, I've been told and diagnosed semi-officially. I'm, I guess, part of the half or unofficially diagnosed, although I can say that I am semi-officially diagnosed. Semi-officially diagnosed. Of course, all those compositions, of course, where we are now to be, and all those dynamics where we have, of course, the interrelations to be now, the left and the right and the butchers, and yeah, that's what we're gonna get doing, man. That's what we're gonna get doing on that rock and roll, and discuss this autism, HFA, specific type or category of autism, HFA, high functioning autistic, of course, is something which we have, of course, the representation, of course, to be now, as the Habs are going to play tonight. There's 3-2, maybe they're going to be 4-2, as my Niners lost to the Buccaneers. Buccaneers were 4-1 and my Niners were 4-1, so it was a tough game. My Niners are now 4-2, which is still good. We're going to get it 13-3 and win the ball. Please, NFL National Football League, NHL National Hockey League, NBA National Basketball Association, MLB, please reduce the cost of the tickets. That is a call in our heart from this independent Aspie artist, athlete, philosopher, geopolitical theoretical analyst, theorist, strategist, who's financially stressed, but who loves that in the corners there. See? Beautiful yellow flowers right in the corner. See how they're strategized and they get those beautiful yellows there? See? Look at that. Gorgeous little lions right in the corner amidst from the concrete. They spring, eh? So I gotta be grateful, you know. Although I live with my scars, my Asperger's, I've learned to manage to a certain extent the characteristics, because there's no medication for Asperger's. You know, you cannot medicate Asperger's. You cannot medicate Asperger's, and that is what it is with that. You cannot medicate Asperger's. It's not a disease which can be treated. You know, you cannot. It's not a disease, first of all. It's not a disease. It's not an illness. It is just a neurological mental divergent condition. We see the world differently through different lens, right? So, because we see the world through different lens, of course, sometimes, for example, now, in the processes where I'm discussing this rock and roll geopoliticking and a little bit about my life and general Asperger's and HFA, high functioning autism conditions and characteristics, I'm also calculating, beautiful garden, I'm also calculating or estimating the cost of living for myself and for my fellow citizens who are now driving, and the fact that gas went up and down, and now it went down by 4 cents, because it was 155.9 last week. Now it's 151.9, so that's exactly 4 cents. So for 100 liters you save $4 if you are to get up, put it in today. Go Habs go, I guess. Reduce the ticket costs. NFL, National Football League, NHL, National Hockey League, and NBA, National Basketball Association, MLB, and all those involved in the production, distribution of food. And you know, because the price of gas in 2020, February 2020, the average price of gas was 93 cents. So in September this year, the average price was about 163. So that's about 75% more. So you can imagine just the simple mathematical calculation that how that actually sucks from the wealth, you know. So that actually sucks from the wealth. 75% more for the same distance. You have to pay more. Basically, the mathematical calculations for the financial cost and the increase of the cost of gas in average, you can make an estimation, and basically you can resume it by saying, of course, that it is an average of 75% more that all citizens have to pay. All citizens have to pay about 75% more. So basically, that's where the financial matters kind of increased financial cost for driving is to be resumed. Of course, if the cars are electric, it doesn't apply, right? If the cars are electric, it's not applicable. The cars have to be using gas, right? It doesn't apply for hybrid. Well, hybrid's less, right? If it uses somewhat gas, if it's electric. Here in Quebec, we got the hydroelectric dam, so it does not pollute. So it's a very different parallel adjudicative manner, right? And if it's not, so you have to be aware of that fact, that it's not the same if it's hydroelectric. I'm just referring to cars that are utilizing gas, consuming gas. So now all these cars are eating money in many ways. They're not literally eating money, but in a way they're eating money, and I'm above it's about 75% more than in 2020, early 2020, right? Because the constant is the amount of gas, the mathematical, financial, economic constant, which a constant in mathematics is something that doesn't change. It stays the same, right? While a variable, mathematical variable, it fluctuates. So the constant is the amount of gas consumed per kilometer, per 100 kilometers, per miles. It can be easily converted from miles into kilometers. It's still going to be the same ratio. The ratio is going to be the same, right? Ratio is going to be the same. Whether miles or Canadian dollars, US dollars, that has to be calculated, but generally the application of the percentage, average percentage increase calculation for the distance. So what changes? What is the variable in this case? The variable is the price of gas. The variable is the price of gas. So for example, this ambulance got to salute our ambulance workers, all these cars, 1, 2, 3, 4. What changes for them is how much they pay for the liter per gas. That's what changed from 2020, right? Because the constant, what hasn't changed, kind of remained the same, is the amount of gas consumed per mile or per kilometer or per 100 miles or per 100 kilometers. So if it was, let's say if it's 10 liters per 100 kilometers, then in 2020 it paid $9.30. In September it paid an average of $16.30. So $16.30 minus 9.3, that's about $7 difference, right? So that's a big difference if you increase the distance, right? Because then it increases, because that's for every 10 liters, right? For every 10 liters, right? In 2020, January, February, for 10 liters, if it takes 10 liters to drive that same distance, which let's say it does, because it varies from cars, from different car brands, right? So there's a variation in the cars. This car will not consume the same as the other car. It might consume the same. Of course, as an N.A.C.W.P, a citizen who has HFA, high functioning autism, Asperger's, my calculations, my specialty is rock and roll, fitness, dancing is my favorite sport, and geopolitics. But an N.A.C.W.P who has a special interest, cars, automobiles, then that N.A.C.W.P would know everything there is to know about that specific car. About that specific car. Everything there is to know about that. How much it consumes, when it's fabricated, how much it weighs, all these technical details and aspects. Because some N.A.C.W.Ps, not all N.A.C.W.Ps are good at, above average. It's true that people with Asperger's like myself, we're above average in mathematics and linguistic capabilities. But to the detriment that we lack certain social skills, and that's more difficult for us. The comprehension of social norms and regulations, that can be more problematic, and it can even lead us in problems such as appearing before the court, appearing before the court and whatever the case may be with that. And that's just something which can happen, of course, in the representations, and that's just something which we have now to do. See, this was part of the strike. It says en grève, see the strike. It says on strike there in the corner, en grève. See, these were the strikes, and supposedly they're gonna start again. See there? It says in English, that one. See, it says on strike there. Upside down a bit. On strike, see? On strike, see? On strike, see? On strike, so they were on strike. This was related to the public transit, which supposedly they're gonna start again, going on strike again, because they didn't get. They were asking for 25% over 5 years, which divided by 5, that's 5% annually, right? That's what they were asking for. So what they got on the table was only 12.5, 12.5, 12.5, Yeah, I know. 12.5, that's what they got. That's what basically they got, 12.5 on the table. So I think that was rejected, that wasn't given, the 25%. Only half they were offered. So they were asking for 25% over 5 years, which is basically a 5% annual increase in salary, right? Which is reasonable, doable even, right? 5% every year increase, because the cost of living, the price of gas went up an average of 75% in the past 5 years or so, right? And the cost of other goods keep increasing. That's the problem. They're just keep increasing. Even my wafers went up last week. I have a video there. I go shopping, and it went up from $1. 3.5 years it was $1. Then it went up from $1 to $1.17. Then from $1.17 to $1.39, and now finally the third time to $1.50. but they're 175 grams. So 175 grams is still good. 175 grams is still good. Oh, you got right away. You still gotta turn your heads left and right before you cross the street. So of course, all that dynamic where we are now is of course the relationship where we have now to be in the domains where we got in the prudential aspects of the apparatus, where we have to conclude that the cost of living has increased while the salaries have stagnated. That's pretty much the main problem of this whole financial economic stress and discussions which we're having. But of course, my own stress is due to myself having this neurodivergence known as Asperger's autism, which I'm going to discuss now. So, but just to finalize on the cost of the driving, the automobiles, the drivers, right? So the cars, this car will always consume an X amount for Y distance, right? X would be the gas and Y would be the distance. That would be kind of that's the constant, right? But let's say M is the price of gas, that's the variable. So that changes, right? But how much it consumes per distance, let's say 100 kilometers, that doesn't change. So like I said, if let's say you see the mountain, that's my second home, our second home where we go often. You can see the small red light where we are often in the dark there, in the mistress, in the dark. That's afar off. We can see the mountain afar off, the headquarters of the dancing goddess and the dragon kingdom, the throne of the sun and the moon, the Horus. Sun rises and sun sets, and that's the mountain there where we are, on the mountain in my second home, and that's how we gotta get on that drilling now, So now that we have the rediscovery and the discussion of the cost of the car, of the drivers, and the increasing burden of driving financially, right? Because see, you can see the mountain afar off. You can see it from all around the island of Montreal. We live on an island, eh? Here, Hawk Island, Montreal. Montreal is a big island. Big island. I'm gonna give them a call also, see if they're hiring. Maybe there's some warehouse here I could work. I don't think that's the same number. That's Guardium, right? Technologies? No. That's not the same number for them. I think that's a different number. Whatever. So this car, let's say, would consume 10 liters per 100 kilometers. That means that in 2020, January, February, for that distance, it costs $9.30. That same car today has to pay 16, or in September, not today, because today is a bit lower, but it's probably going to go up, because it's up and down. But in September, that was about the average, 161, 162, 163. So that means that's about 70 to 75% more, right? So about $7 more for that same distance. So basically, maybe to fill the tank, see if it's 40 liters, 40 times 4, that's divided by 4, 40 divided by 10 is 4, so it costs maybe more than $28 more to fill the tank, eh? Average. It could be more even. Wow, see? You see now when you get to the numbers that it's pressing tremendously. You see the pressure now? Now you see. So that means if they have to do it once or twice a week, 28 times 2, that's 56. If you do it once and then a week, a month, 56 times 4, that's 224, right? 56 times 4. These numbers are easy for me to calculate by my head. So 56 times 4 is 56 times 4. Yeah, that's $224. Can you imagine? If you have to do 4 See how that adds up, eh? You have to fill the tank 4 times a month with that same amount. That's $224 more. $224 more. $224 more. That is a tremendous amount, eh? That's a tremendous amount. See, when you calculate like that, right? That's a big amount, man. It's huge. It adds up, see? And that's where the problem lies. It adds up. It adds up. It adds up. So it adds up tremendously. Tremendously. Now I say, wow, that's so much stress and even panic, even desperation, financial desperation for many majority of Canadians, more than would like to admit, eh? Just do that calculation. That's just for gas, and that's just for the cost of gas. Paradoxically, we in Canada, we have the tar sands, but ecologically and economically, it's not feasible. More and more development in the 21st century and late 20th century has occurred, has happened, but of course it's less and less, because it's less than we would love to develop. Because in theory, the tar sands in Alberta have billions and billions and billions of barrels. We would be number one in terms of reserves, something like that, where it's disputed with the coast of Venezuela there, but supposedly they have the biggest reserves. But what a beauty. Look at that beautiful autumn colors. The reserves in the tar sands are among the top 5 in the world, will place us among the top 5 countries with most reserve, if not second. If they're supposedly off the coast of Venezuela, but that's disputed because it's in the water, so it's like territorial, international threat. That's disputed. Last week I applied for a job with them, the Eco Center. I had some experience working in the Eco Center. I'm gonna do a follow-up in the coming 4 days, maybe this week, or wait until next week, to do a follow-up. I guess let a week or two pass, 2 weeks, I guess, give them 2 weeks. So maybe not do a follow-up this week, but next Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, next week, I applied for a job. The problem with yours truly is not that I don't get jobs in Aspies. The problem is with Aspies, I'm gonna do a little session on Asperger's. And myself, I'm part of the half or not officially diagnosed, although I consider myself to be semi-officially diagnosed, because for years and years and years and years I've been told and diagnosed in a way by people who have experience in the healthcare system and working with people who have Asperger's. So I can say semi-officially diagnosed. But of course, I had said that I didn't want to accept it, for years and years and years and years. I always said no. I didn't want to accept the stigma, that I have this difference, this neurological mental divergent condition, not a disease, because it's not a disease. And I remember I worked in steel and people were whispering in French, and that's a disease, that's a disease, that's a disease, and that's a disease, that's a disease. And it's not a disease. It's just sometimes we're direct and straightforward, and sometimes we're weird, awkward, bizarre, and strange, but we're not evil, bad, negative, or a disease, nor a demons or demonic or satanic. Nothing like that, Nothing like that. Nothing like that. It's not that, It's not that. It's just a neurodivergence. We see the world differently, and because of how we see the world differently, and how we lack certain social skills, it can be difficult for us socializing in a neurotypical manner. We have our way of socializing. So, for example, we might discuss, and sometimes you might think that an N.A.C.W.P is cutting you off. It's not that we're cutting you off. It's just how we communicate. It can be weird, like Also personal space, we tend to breach it and get very close. Like instead of 4 yards instead of the 4 yards, like the 4 yards distance, personal space, aspies we get 4 inches, eh? So yeah, I can imagine if I always have to work on that. Even my friend says take a step back, and that's how we work, and that's how we drill it, and that's how we are now, you know, to have this neurodivergence. That's the 4th ambulance I see today with 4 different numbers on it. See, the N.A.C.W.P thing, I was looking at the different numbers on the ambulance. 001 was 33, thing 1 was 95, the other one was 144, and one of them was, I believe, I'm not sure, but they were all different numbers. Thing 1 was 89 or something. Because they're stationed over there somewhere. They cluster some ambulances over there. Anyways, gotta salute the ambulance drivers, the firefighters, the butchers, the bakers, the nurses, the doctors, and the plumbers, the electricians, the welders, all those involved in the production, distribution of food, always for the cooks, you know, the daycare workers who change some diapers, and the electricians, the plumbers, the public transit workers, you know, truckers, welders, all of it are part of the North American Civilisation Collective, as I call for the N.A.C.W.P, the North American Collective Workers' Party, aka the Phoenix People's Party, a pro-labor and love universal revolutionary centrist. Pro-labor and love universal revolutionary centrism is my North American centric philosophy, a democratic republicanism, a centrist, public-private partnerships centrist. My centrism is tied hand in hand with my philosophies par contras. So the CIT, the initiative, the theory, CIT, citizen integration theory, the DFT, democratic fusion theory, and the DRT, debt fusion theory, parallel to B, the propositions, of course, where we are now, in the administrative states, and in the love where we are to be transmissed about, and where we get, of course, on that concordiate, and we get a little bit of that loving with that red and the black, and always got to say a little bit of that rock and roll and swing it for the nurses as well, eh? Nurses who finish their 12-hour shift now. On their 11-hour, they're screaming a bit. They say, oh, you know, millionaires, billionaires, I've been craving a massage therapy session. I'm grateful, thankful that I can take a bath where I live now. Because where I used to live, still on the island of Montreal, as a matter of fact, it's been years and years and years and years since I haven't left the island. And I got to be grateful because in 2017, I crossed Canada coast to coast, ocean to ocean, and that event made me establish a strong esprit d'accord with my fellow Canadians. That event made me, and my brothers and sisters in the 50 states, because was born, I'm also a mystic, not just an artist, athlete, philosopher, geopolitical, theoretical analyst, and theorist, but a mystic. Of course, who was born in the United States 3 times, once as a woman, post 76, twice as a man. You just gotta read George Patton's 3 Glass Darkly. George Patton, 3 Glass Darkly, that was one of my favorite poems, and I applied here also. I have to make a follow-up because I didn't get any news. Yeah, you just read George Patton, 3 Glass Darkly. There he states his belief in reincarnations, as I believe in reincarnations, and I lived many past lives, many incarnations, from ancient Egypt up to today. Sometimes was born a man, a woman, man, a woman, man, man, a woman, man, man, a woman, man, woman, a man, man, a woman, man, man, a woman, man. That you get that 50-50 now. Androgynous, pansexual artist, athlete, philosopher, and geopolitical, theoretical analyst, and theorist, and always putting it for the 10, the 50, and the 3, and always for the domains, always for the bakers, and the butchers, and the nurses, and the firefighters, and the electricians, and the plumbers, and all those now involved in the production, distribution of food. Yeah, I already applied, but I think I'm going to give them a call. I applied by email. No, I sent that email there, info, Levitz. I'm going to wait until they get back to me, and maybe I'm going to call tomorrow morning. 514-367-1654. If it's still available, because it's been here. This is not the first time I apply here, though. And they didn't get back to me. Info, Levitz. That's it. I'm going to try again. Maybe that's old. They forgot to take it off sometimes, or they need to hire somebody to take it off. And I could do it. Even a scaffolding, $10. So the problem with Aspies, again, it's not a disease. That's where we have to draw the line. It's a very high unemployment for Aspies. See, that's the mountain. Could be seen afar off. That's where we were Friday atop, and the other day, and every day almost. Sometimes we don't go to the mountain. Sometimes we come by the river. Sometimes, but most of the times we go there atop the mountain, which can be seen afar off. The headquarters of the dancing goddess from the Dragon Kingdom. So the problem for Aspies is because of how we interact and how we are. There's a problem for us to maintain long-term employment. It can be problematic, and for us Aspies, although we're a tiny minority, right, is less than 1%. And again, when I use Asperger's and high functioning autism is one and the same. Before I embark, I'm just gonna go hydrate there, HYDRATE, and you know, I gotta please don't leave trash here. Just recycle it, you know. Recycle it, and just gonna hydrate a bit. Super important to stay hydrated. And got that backpack. Because this is the second part of the video, so I'll be marching for more than an hour and a half now. Got HYDRATE. I guess we're gonna take it on the side because I'm gonna take a look here and see a little bit of the greenery. Right, so Asperger's and HFA is one and the same. We have problems maintaining long-term employment, so it can be difficult for people who have autism, HFA. HFA, basically Asperger's and HFA is one and the same thing. They merged in 2013, 2014. It's just a variant, if you will, a variant of Asperger's, a variant. And so thus, that being stated that it is that variant, some say a milder form of autism. That's what Asperger's is, or high-functioning Asperger's. High-functioning autism is the same thing as Asperger's. Again, I use both. For the condition that I have, I use both HFA, high-functioning autism, and Asperger's because it's the same thing. And so, due to that fact, what is the problem, major problems is that we have trouble maintaining long-term employment. Maintaining long-term employment. That is problematic for Aspies. That is problematic for Aspies. Maintaining long-term employment is problematic. See, that's where we are. That's where the three-peak mountain is. Where that red light there, flashing red light, that's atop the mountain there, that antenna where I pass by, I always get flashes of my parallel life where I'm a super scientist, artist, athlete, and that's the mountain, the peak, three-peak mountain where you can see it afar off, and that's the downtown core area there. See, that's the downtown core area. You can see it yourself, and that's Montreal, Hawk Island, that's where we are. Island of the Hawk, and the river is there. Sometimes we go by the big river, and if I see that house, if I would have been a billionaire, I would have gotten my anonymous friend, because I got to thank my anonymous friend for gifting me and 2 books on autism, and 1 book specifically was on Asperger's, which I recommend to all. It's called Appreciating Asperger's Syndrome, and what a beautiful reddish flaming orange sunset here on the East Coast, Hawk Island, Montreal. This is just part of the river, you know. Sometimes in my videos we go to the river, and you can see so much, the width, how big, how large the river St. Lawrence is. This is just part of the river that's being deviated, and this goes all the way to the old port, right? So this deviation from the river here, this goes to the old port, and then from the old port, this water goes into the big river and it goes into the ocean, right? It goes into the ocean, right? So this river here, see, that comes from the river from Lachine, from the west, and it goes to the east, and it goes then into the Atlantic, because it comes from the Great Lakes. So the river goes all the way to the Great Lakes. So the island of Montreal, where I reside, is called the island of Montreal. I call it Hawk, H-A-W-K. So back to Asperger's a little bit. Asperger's is a neurological mental divergent condition. It's not a disease, it's not an illness. It is a neurological mental divergent condition. It makes you predisposed to these peculiar character, bizarre traits, right? It's just we see the world differently. Even now, mathematical processes are going in my mind as in terms of calculating or estimating the calculation of all these cars that you see by the hundreds, by the thousands, not just in Montreal, Hawk Island, as I turn to go towards the sunset, an amazing beauty, amazingly beautiful sunset. I'm awestruck. What a beautiful sky. Such a beautiful sunset. And you know, I live carpe diem every day and appreciate the beauty of both nature and the scientific civilization, where we gotta be learning, of course, to approach our transformation, local, national, internationally, for world peace, and avert Armageddon, economic, financial Armageddon, by implementing my DRT theory, other Armageddons, such as social cultural, by bridges of social cultural understanding. And with me, you have to build bridges, because I'm neurodivergent myself, so I have my own weird, awkward, bizarre, strange ways. As many Aspies, we have them. And one of the problems is that we have problem with maintaining long-term employment. We get jobs, we get employment, but keeping jobs long-term, as also friends, is problematic for people who live with this neurological mental divergent condition, known again as Asperger's or HFA, high-functioning autism, of which myself I am living with, because you cannot medicate. There's no medication. Even the causes, we don't know if it's genetic. They're inconclusive. It could be genetic, it could be hereditary, it could be a multifactorial environmental, X, Y, Z, A, B, C, D, 1, 2, 3, 4. And again, for the controversial aspect that I'm an acetaminophen, not necessarily Tylenol. Tylenol is the brand, right, for the headache relief pills and other muscle pain, and Tylenol is a brand. But some Tylenol pills contain acetaminophen. Whenever I say the word acetaminophen, it always triggers past life regression, reincarnations. Maybe that's why I have problem remembering my life prior to winter, January, February 2014, to make space for my previous past lives incarnation, although winter 2014 is more than 11 years and a half ago, so it matters most what I did ever since, as I'm on my 4th rebirth, and finally about 3.5 years ago, because for more than 9 years, since about 2016, I've been told and by several citizen individuals that I have Asperger's, so I never wanted to accept the label of this difference, this kind of stigma. It's less and less and less and less of a stigma. HFA, high functioning autism, and Asperger's in general is less of a stigma, but we have our difficulties still, because still today the unemployment stands at, it's about 80%, 4 out of 5 Aspies. That's 11 times higher than the neurotypical population, so keep that in mind. Keep that in mind. Sometimes it's even higher than 80%. Can you imagine that? 80%. No other community has such a high level of unemployment, right? It's very high. And I'm also part of the LGBTQ community. I'm, of course, androgynous, pansexual, but the LGBTQ community is about 6-7% of the population. 4% depending on the generations, but 4, 5, 6, 7, 8%, right? But Aspies were less than 1%. So it's a tiny, small community. It's a small community, people who live with Asperger's, and we have our strange ways. Sometimes the discussion, the interactions can be a bit weird, awkward, our movements sometimes, and we have special interests. And again, unemployment is very, very high, and please don't give me the billionaires who have Asperger's. And if you're a millionaire, billionaire who has Asperger's and who has suffered, struggled because of Asperger's, be mindful to support Aspies. Got to give a shout out last year, about a year ago, exactly, maybe 13 months ago, some days. A fellow Aspie has donated $25.44. I remember I got a bottle of wine, affordable bottle of wine. I got some bacon, I got some food, and I got some sweets. So I celebrated the Sabbath thanks on those $25.44. It was a good Sabbath, so that's always something which I got to be mindful. But now I'm more on the receiving end. I'm not looking necessarily for charity. I'm looking more for understanding and friends with benefits. If you're 18 plus, don't waste my time, I won't waste yours. 18 plus, I won't waste my time. Don't waste my time, I won't waste yours. I'm androgynous, pansexual. Friends with benefits only. If you want to get that friends with benefits, then we can rock and roll. It's friends with benefits I would adore to have, as many as possible on the 18 plus, 18 plus. I'm not sexually frustrated. If I would be, I would discuss my sexual frustrations. I have healthy masturbation, little clit, dick, clit, androgynous. I am for years and years and years in the open since I can remember. I'm part of the LGBTQ community out of the closet for many, 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 many years. It's just with Asperger's, this has been more difficult, although I made friends in the LGBTQ community. But don't waste my time, Don't waste my time. Don't waste yours. What for? Friends, your legions support my vision, my dream, the Publik Pravo partnership, the dancing goddess and the dragon kingdom, The dancing goddess and the dragon kingdom. The dancing goddess and the dragon kingdom, that's fundamentally the dream for the North American Collective and for world peace. That's really what matters. My work, and to have some financial relief and friends with benefits, life affirming, physical Aspie here. I love physicality, I lust, and I've been craving a massage therapy session for years. If I would be able to afford it, I would go get a massage therapy. I would definitely go get a massage therapy, but I can't afford it, so that's it. I can't afford it. But millionaires, billionaires, Wall Street, the public workers, those who pick up the garbage, those who pick up the recycling, those who pick up the compost, the nurses, public workers who work in sanitation, they deserve it more than yours truly. They earn it more than yours truly. So I guess best to finance them a little bit of that good, loving massage therapy session, because I'm going to take a bath tomorrow or Thursday or one of these days, probably tomorrow. Take an hour bath, take a little bit of that bathing and take a bath. That's probably gonna do me some good with that rock and roll. So gonna look into that and gonna have that done to compensate for a massage therapy session which I can't afford, and that's why we're gonna drill it. So As I encourage all to work out, train, exercise, I started my fitness journey, and after I crossed Canada coast to coast, in 2017, cross Canada coast to coast in 2017. That event made me establish the strongest spirit of core with my fellow Canadians, who I consider family, my brothers and sisters in the 50 states as well. Since I'm a mystic who believes in reincarnations. I was born as a woman once and twice as a man, and just gotta read that George Patton through a glass darkly. I guess I can channel Dragon Zero, a general Patton to the power of 3 lightning thunder strikes. Only for SSD, security, service and defense, rock and roll, and created my workout training program system. Still financially stressed, but I got food, leftovers. Got a great Thanksgiving. Gotta salute my anonymous friend who cooked. If I make a million, a tree, I'm gonna give her half and cook some of that great food. It came out some labor and cooked some of that good food, and of course I gotta give a little bit of that loving and thanks and gratitude, and gonna propose again, I guess maybe on the 31st. I got 2 no's. Maybe I'm gonna do it like Biden, and who's gonna marry me anyways, open marriage, I guess. A good CUCK cuckold. If I'm gonna be the greatest cuckold in the universe, maybe. I'm androgynous pansexual, so maybe I'm gonna propose on Halloween, at least to get engaged, at least to get engaged, and that's maybe why we're gonna get a yes, special on that rock and roll. And if I die today, tomorrow, whenever, I'm no longer suicidal, been a long time, but bury me with Papa Crowley, a third of me up in New Jersey. Well, bury me first 11 years up in a mountain at the back of the Belvedere, conjure an act. 11 years at the back of the Belvedere, conjure an act, then send every 11 years, send me to Hampton, New Jersey, with Papa Crowley, Hampton, New Jersey, then send me to the city of the pyramids and bring me back, So Asperger's, we have some problems, some issues, 4 main problems I'm going to discuss, and then wrap it up, go into geopolitics, because that's my kingdom, my realm, my domain. So Asperger's, we have 4 main problems. The problems which we encounter the most because of our difference, right? Because we are different. I'm different from you, the 99% of the population, with which me and other Aspies, we have to build bridges, whether we build small bridges, medium-sized bridges, large bridges, or extra large bridges. We have to build bridges, because I don't have antagonistic, hostile feelings of resentment towards the neurotypicals, right? So those are the ones that we gotta build, the bridges. So those bridges that we have to build, right? So those are the bridges. Now, we have to build those bridges just like when you order a coffee, a pizza, or fries. You might order a small pizza, coffee, or fry, medium-sized pizza, coffee, or fry, large pizza, coffee, or fry, large fries, coffee, or pizza. One of these four categories. Just like this bridge, we have to build them, whether small, medium, large, or extra large. Thank you, truckers, for transporting the milk. We produce some milk here, the cows first, and we got to work on reducing the cost for the goods. And I want the Dragon Army, public private partnership, call for years and years and years, of course, to be well fed, have access to everything, food and transportation, coast to coast, ocean to ocean, as we're gonna get into that. So we got to build bridges. The 4 main problems we have as Aspies: the lack of friends, lack of friends. That's why I don't waste my time, I won't waste yours. Friends with benefits only, friends with benefits only. Lack of friends. Or we tend to lose friends, we tend to lose friends. That's why pledge your allegiance, thou art family, or if not that, then friends with benefits. Otherwise, don't waste my time. One or the other, or both, one or the other, or both. Pledge your allegiance, thou art family, and friends with benefits only. And that's all we have to do now, of course, in the meditation of civilization, that all this civilization is a privilege. Having running water, electricity, coast to coast, ocean to ocean, all the dynamics of the civilizational complex, you know, the construction workers who build, the Hydro-Quebec workers who build the poles for us to have electricity. It's quite a privilege. That was my thesis back in 23. I'm gonna have to revise it. I did a 4-part lecture series. I'm not gonna discuss it much, but all this transportation, the highways, the railways, the highways, all of these, of course, are civilizational privileges. And these civilizational privileges are, of course, part of the privilege of civilization, which, of course, encompasses the great privilege of civilizations, which we have by just having these highways, you know, these majestic big highways across the North American collective, North American Civilization Collective, which a lot of them, they need mass reinvestment. We're gonna get into that. But of course, before we get into that, we're gonna, of course, discuss the other realities, which of course is concomitant to Asperger's, the 4 main problems which we are faced as Aspies, myself included. So in whatever order, one would be the lack of friends. We have a tendency not to have many friends. That's why I have the solution for me. Friends with benefits only. Don't waste my time, I won't waste yours. And of course, pledge your allegiance to our family. I see somebody wearing red RED. Maybe Dragon Army, friends with benefits, maybe not. Don't waste my time, I won't waste yours. Drive safely, turn your heads left and right before you cross the street. And of course, the other is the relationship where we have now is, of course, all the domains where we got to be in the civilizational aspects of the domains of all the relationships where we have now to be, you know, of course, the categorization of Asperger's, that those are the 4 main problems, one of which is the lack of friends. The other one is the high unemployment. So I had many jobs. Is just keeping the employment long term. So maintaining long-term employment has been problematic. Maintaining long-term employment has been problematic. Long-term employment has been problematic for myself and for Aspies because it's 11 times higher. It's about 80% higher than, of course, neurotypicals. So that's the big ratio. And no, not all Aspies are good at computer science. Yes, a disproportionate amount of people with HFA, high-functioning autism, with Asperger's are good at computer science than the neurotypical population, which is about 20%. 20%, right? So the ratio is about 20%, 1 out of 5. So the ratio, of course, combined, being that is the ratio of this combination, that means, of course, that the combination and the ratio is about 11 times higher, because for you neurotypicals, the population is about 1% to 4%. While yes, disproportionately our ASP population, people with Asperger's and HFA, are disproportionately good at computer science and computers and mathematics. And science, I guess, computer science and mathematics. But not all, because it's not all. The population is, of course, 20%. About average of 20%. So again, it's not all. So of course, to calculate and to take that into consideration is, of course, therefore to be the constituent representation in a mathematical manner is that we have a disproportionate population within the tiny small community. That the fact that we are less than 1% of the population, the fact, of course, that we are less than 1% of the population, that we are disproportionately good at computer science. However, not all Aspies are good. My specialty, because my special interest is geopolitics, sports and fitness, dancing being my favorite sport, although I love gridiron and boxing and women's hockey and men's hockey, all hockey and women's sports and men's sports. I'm 50-50 androgynous myself. I love dancing. Dancing is my favorite sport, but I'm also a 49er, rock and roll, and with that rock and roll, so some Aspies are good at computers, not all. So no, not all Aspies are computers, the geniuses who know how to code, how to hack, how to build computers, how to create codes, how to create programs, how to create apps. If you are, let's go create the Dragon Army app, the Imperial Draconis Dragon Army app for the Dragon Army, coast to coast, ocean to ocean, and the DJ Dancing Goddess Army. Create it, of course, together and do some dancing applications and do some of that dance and do some of that rock and rolling, you know, always for the firefighters, always for the butchers, always for the plumbers, always for the electricians, always for those construction workers, always for the bakers, always for the nurses, always for the plumbers, welders, construction workers, truckers, and highway workers, public workers, you know. So that is the problem with Asperger's. We don't have lots of friends, and my solution, like I said, is friends with benefits only. The other problem is lack of long-term employment. So lack of long-term employment. The employment problematic is a high occurring problem within the Asperger community and autistic community, very high. Sometimes it's more than 80%, which is 4 out of 5. So that's 11 times higher than yours. Another problem is, parallel to lack of friends and lack of employment, is high suicidal and depression rates. 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 High suicidal. I've been depressed and suicidal since from like summer end of 2014 till about summer 2017 for about 2.5, 3 years. I almost took my lights out. I was depressed, suicidal, and having crossed Canada coast to coast, that got me out of being depressed and suicidal. So that changed my life. Crossing Canada coast to coast in 2017 in August, when with my anonymous friend, thank you for loaning four times from the library, the book, which has helped me tremendously in my growth and understanding of my own neurodivergence known as Asperger's autism, to the fact, of course, that there has been this level of having to have had tremendous patience and work, because it can be very difficult for people who are not Aspies to understand and grasp Asperger's. Plus, being an androgynous Aspie myself, channeling past lives when I was a priestess, as I was a priestess of the goddess from ancient Egypt by those pyramids, and priestess, Pythia, who orated the great Retria to Lycurgus. I was the priestess Pythia, who orated the great Retria to Lycurgus. I was the priestess Pythia, who orated the great Retria to Lycurgus. So I was the priestess Pythia, who orated the great Retria to Lycurgus. As I was, of course, the priestess Pythia. Who orated the great Retria to Lycurgus. I was the priestess Pythia, the Oracle Oracle of Delphi. Pythia orated the great Retria to Lycurgus. As I am priestess, son of our empire, now with trillions of kisses, laying the foundations for our kingdom empire with trillions of kisses, 718 trillions of kisses and trillions of marching steps and lots of push-up squats and lots of rock and roll with that, and of course always for the firefighters, the butchers, the bakers, and the nurses, the doctors, the electricians, and the plumbers, and the welders, and all those involved, you know, in the production, distribution of food, although who are now, you know, involved in those dynamics where we are now, to be conquered middle, of course, rediscovering and working on the building bridges between myself and neurotypicals, you the 99% data, Vast majority are neurotypicals, 99%. So we gotta build bridges. I don't have antagonistic, hostile feelings, elements, and anything of that manner, or of that genre with you, the neurotypicals, you know. So now we gotta say, and we gotta be, and we gotta propone, and we gotta rock and roll, and we gotta be on that life, you know. We gotta be on that life, and we got those issues, those problems, lack of friends, lack of employment, or very high unemployment, right? And high depression and suicidal rates. It's about 9 times higher. And the fourth problem, or in whatever order you put these four can be placed in different orders depending on the experience of that particular aspect, but also high dropout rates, right? High dropout rates, you know. High dropout rates. High dropout rates. High dropout rates. I have a high school diploma. I graduated high school. I dropped out of college. I went to some college and don't remember my life prior to 2014, January, February, but that's what it is with that. And that's why we got a little bit of that drill, you know, to be aware of all this privilege, which is civilization, and my own struggles. I fought depression, and I was suicidal and depressed, and cross Canada, coast to coast. That got me out of it. So I strongly recommend both fitness, gratitude, and if you can travel, especially Canada, United States, because there's so many things to see, to do, eh? Just in Canada, United States, me and my anonymous friend in August, we went to Nova Scotia. Correction. In September 2017, we went to Halifax, Nova Scotia by train. 25 hours and 44 minutes by train. I got the tickets. I'm auctioning them for $1 million to give my friend half of that. And then, of course, in 2017, September 2017, yeah. September 2017, we went to Halifax. In August 2017, we went to British Columbia, BC. We went to BC, British Columbia, and that's what we did, and that's how we got a little bit of that drill, and that event made me change my whole life, and that's when I got out of being depressed and got out of being suicidal and changed my life. Maybe I would have taken my life, and I established a strong esprit de corps with my fellow Canadians and brothers and sisters in the USA, you know. Always for the 10, the 50, and the 3 for the 63, and let our empire rise and be, and always grateful, and sometimes moody, upset, and craving a massage therapy session. But besides that, it's been a long time that I am not depressed and suicidal, and that event made me realize I had an awakening. So many things, I said to myself, so many things to see, to do. And I remember crossing the prairies and reaching Banff, the Rockies, mountains, so majestic, so divine, so beautiful, so powerfully high, and just gorgeous. The Rockies, I had a revelation and like an awakening. I said to myself, such a great country I have, and we have, and gotta salute those train conductors, eh? I know this civilization is a privilege. I know we're tough times and unprecedented for many generations, eh? Millennials and Gen Z, you know. I guess we're more on the new generation, millennials and Zers and millennials, but other generations as well, but the majority of people are struggling, and some even say Canada is actually collapsing, that we're actually in a bad recession, and even the D word, the depression, actually, for both Canada and the United States, because of this cost of living and stagflation and inflation. And of course, now I'm going to close on Asperger's. Thank you again to my anonymous friend for gifting me 2 books on autism, and that book, which was loaned from a library, was loaned 4 times, and it's called Appreciating Asperger's Syndrome. It was written before Asperger's merged with HFA, because it's one and the same now. It made me open my eyes to see my own vulnerabilities, and how, because of this perception from a neurotypical perspective, how sometimes the way we interact and communicate can be strange, weird, bizarre, awkward, and odd, and thus it can cause certain malicious manifestations thereof. And these malicious manifestations, of course, can be proponent, of course, to be in the sense that we are to conclude that they are not necessarily, they can be to our disadvantage, and we can be vulnerable. So it opened to my own vulnerabilities, because I learned a lot about my condition and vis-a-vis the neurotypical perspective, how ASPE is not just myself as an individual sovereign citizen who lives with Asperger's, this neurological mental divergent condition, but others, how we can be vulnerable, how we can be, because of our difference of perceiving social cues and not being able to detect certain things of a group mind and hive mind, and certain social dynamics which can put us in a vulnerable position. So that book I recommend to all, Appreciating Asperger's Syndrome. And we have our strengths as well, and now I'm going to go into my strength, which is geopolitics. So leave the baggage at the door. We're entering my kingdom. I have a special interest. My special interest, and ASPEs with XYZ different special interests vary, have to be supported, because ASPEs potentially can make a great innovative contribution, higher than average, and can excel and be even savants. I'm not claiming savantship or that I'm a savant in the matter, but I'm going to begin to the fact that on October 2019, 17th of October, to be specific, 17th of October 2019, I have actually predicted that there will be an international conflagration. So I predicted that there will be an international conflagration in the world. That was my prediction. So I predicted that there was going to be an international conflagration in the world in 2019, October 17 to be specific. I posted the first video, and then I consequently also created a workout training program system. I created the best, most efficient, effective workout training program system called the General War Integrated Total Body Training System, aka the Draconis workout. The General War Integrated Total Body Training System is a total body training workout system which does not require any equipment. It has a simple science to it. It is based on several parameters, of which I'm going to discuss it quickly. There's 4 main rules, if you will. Rules and parameters. 1 is allocated 93 minutes, 44 seconds, and 9/11 of a second. 93 minutes, 44 seconds, and 9/11 of a second. The 9/11 of a second is, maybe you've guessed, maybe you didn't, is to commemorate the 9/11 attack. And NATO, the North Atlantic Treaty Organization member countries, our military alliance, only invoked Article 5 for mutual self-collective defense only once in its 75-year history. We celebrate a 75-year history because Canada is one of the 32 nations. The latest, 32nd to have joined is Sweden. Sweden just joined last year. Its 75-year history, NATO only invoked Article 5 once. NATO only invoked Article 5 once. NATO only invoked Article 5 once. And of course, all those domains where we have now, of course, in the appellatives, of course, constitutional representations where we are now to be, in the dynamics where we got to be related upon, and we got to get a little bit of that consequentiality that, of course, these relative relations are, of course, as I said, that the workout training program system is a workout training program system that requires no equipment, that it is created to go hand in hand with a World War III scenario. Of course, that World War III scenario is consequently the World War III scenario, which of course has unfolded in many ways ever since the Russia-Ukraine war and invasion. So back in 2019, I created this workout because I have the videos online, I have the proof, and you can see there day 1, day 4, day 300, day 400, day 500, up to days 1000 something of the World War III scenario, right? So some say World War III has started, or that actually has started, or it's underway, it's about to start, and for all we know, any minute, China might invade Taiwan, because they still claim that that's still an unresolved conflict from their 20th century, as I had predicted and calculated in my geopolitical prediction and analysis, was that due to the fact that there were many nation states and of course countries which had not of course concluded and resoluted of course their dynamics, of course their conflicts, of course from the 20th century, of course from the 20th century, and of course what you see is of course that they have not of course concluded their relations and their dynamics. They have not concluded, they have not officially resolved their conflicts from the 20th century. Okay, so that was my analysis of 2019. So the workout training program system's rules are pretty simple, effective, and straightforward. So one is allocated 93 minutes, 44 seconds, and 9/11 of a second. As you've guessed, of course, 9/11 of a second is, of course, to commemorate the 9/11 attacks. The 9/11 attacks, the 9/11 attacks. 9/11 of a second, right? So that's small. So the total amount allocated is 93 minutes, 44 seconds, and 9/11 of a second, almost 45 seconds, in order to complete and to do 100 push-ups, 100 hawks, 100 squats. So 100 push-ups, 100 squats, 100 hawks, right? 100 push-ups, 100 squats, and 100 hawks. 100 for each of the aforementioned squats, push-ups, and hawks. You can see hundreds of my own created workout training program system, which I have myself created, made consequently back then, as I stated aforementioned, back in 2019. And since then, I performed more than 372 sessions, of which hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds are officially available online of me discussing it, and you can check it out for yourself if you're so interested. So it's simple, effective, and efficient. It's not meant for muscle development, for muscle. It's meant for muscle increasing in general overall fitness and strength. It's not necessarily meant for muscle aesthetics. So for aesthetic purposes, you know, to look good, in other words, for aesthetics. But it increases general overall fitness. And again, some of the other rules to it, which are inclusive in it, which I did not mention, are these. So one is allocated almost 93 minutes, 44 seconds, and 9/11 of a second is the official time allocated. But once you start the countdown, you cannot pause. You got to keep it in motion by marching, jogging, running, or walking fast pace. And you can only do maximum 13 reps per set, minimum 3. So 13 and 3, those numbers go together. So you can do 10 times 10. That's 100 for each of the 3 exercises which are required. Push-ups, squats, hawks, and hawks. Hawks, you can see, you know what squat is. Squats and push-ups is a total body exercise, where the squats balances the lower body, and the hawks, the hawk for the hawk bird, my totem bird, H-A-W-K, you have to go on the toes like the ballerina and spread your wings 180 degrees, basically like 360 degrees. You can check my workouts there. I have hundreds of them, so you can check what a hawk is, because you have to do those 3, 100 for each. But you can't do more than 13. You can do more than 13, but you can mark it for the count. So it's 13 maximum repetitions per set, 3 minimum. Usually I do 10. Usually I do mostly 10 times 10. That's easy to get to 100. But sometimes I do 6, 4, then 13, 3, 13 maximum reps per set, 3 minimum. And in between sets, you cannot pause. You got to keep it in motion by marching, running, or jogging, or walking fast pace. A minimum of 31 seconds. Minimum of 31 seconds. So the average for me to do it, complete it, takes me about an hour. Takes me about an hour to complete it. Takes me about an hour, right? I averaged lowest was 44 minutes and like 56 seconds. Lowest was like 44 minutes and 56 seconds. And the highest was like 88 minutes and 50 seconds. So almost 89 minutes and almost 45 minutes. But the average was about an hour to do it. But you can't pause. Once you start a countdown of the clock, basically 93 minutes, 44 seconds, and 9/11 of a second going down, the count, that's the total allocated time. So that's the maximum allotted allocated time. So you have to do 100 push-ups, 100 squats, 100 hawks, push-ups and squats, 100 for each within that time, while marching, jogging, running, or walking fast, or jogging, or marching steps. You can't stop once the countdown is on. Once the clock is running, the 93-minute countdown, it's a countdown, right? 93 minutes and 44 seconds and 1/9/11 of a second. That's the countdown. But you could put it from 0 to 93 minutes and that, or you could put it in reverse. It could be a count down or a count up, whatever. That's the total allocated time, the maximum. You cannot surpass that. So you have to do 100 push-ups, 100 squats, 100 hawks, maximum 13 reps per set, minimum 3. Those two numbers go together, 13 and 3, 13 and 3. And 31 also, 31 is the number of seconds that you gotta march, run, or jog, or walk fast pace in between sets. Whether you do 13 max or 3 minimum, or anywhere in between 13 and 3, meaning 4 or 12 or 5 or 6 or 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, whatever. Right? So you can check myself, you have hundreds of them there, myself performing it and doing it, and I have to restart it. I guess a new cycle, maybe October 17th, I'm gonna start a throwback, because I'm gonna mark 6 years. Wow, 6 years, 2019, since I created it. And it's official. I have I've advocated for it to be integrated for all security services apparatus of NATO, and I created to mobilize the population. It is the standard fitness examination for the Dragon Army, which I'm calling as a mass public private partnership, SSD Legion, to be for security service and defense, to be for security service and defense, to be for SSD for security service and defense, to be for security service and defense in the manifestation, of course, that it is now, and the appellation, of course, that it is on that rock and roll for us to be now, concomitant to all the domains and all the World War III knocking at that door. So in 2019, October 17th, my conclusion was that World War III is coming. International conflagration, World War III, a global conflict is on the horizon. And my theory is to avert Armageddon, the DRT best. And I'm now going to say that what I did not predict, although I predicted an international conflagration in a World War III, I did not predict that our relations with the United States will deteriorate as they have deteriorated to such a degree now. And it gives me goosebumps and shivers every time I discuss it. Do you know that since August 1st, we're designated as an unusual, an extraordinary threat. Since August 1st, we're designated as an unusual and extraordinary threat. Canada, since August 1st, when Trump administration decided to increase tariffs on Canadian aluminum and not just aluminum and steel. And since Donald Trump imposed tariffs on Canadian aluminum and steel the first time in 2018, that's when I started challenging Donald Trump to a boxing match. And of course, I've been challenging Donald Trump ever since to a boxing match, of course, ever since 2018. So consequently, in the relationship where we are now, of course, in the appellations, and of course all the other relationship where we are now, that I have those red gloves back in the backpack. In my backpack, I got those red gloves Red gloves in the backpack, you know. Red gloves in the backpack. Have those red gloves in the backpack. Have those red gloves. Thank you, my anonymous friend. It was a gift about 6 years ago, 2018, since nothing personal against Granddaddy Trump, you know. I would have voted for Biden Kamala, but it's a mistake to have imposed tariffs on Canadian aluminum and steel the first time in 2018, and not to invite us by tariffs or bullying, by baking some pies instead. And it's now 51, it's gonna be 13 providentially, just like the original. We're gonna fuse 13 through North Strong and Free, and here in Quebec we're gonna get that French state. We have that French state, and we're gonna mass finance healthcare with that, and we're gonna implement my DRT theory, because my brothers and sisters, fellow Canadians, the king is absent. The king is absent. The king is absent. It's time for the republic. The king is absent. We should have been a republic on the 1st of January 2000. The year 2000, we should have been a republic. The year 2000, we should have been a republic. 2000, we should have been a republic. The year 2000. We should have been a republic. The year 2000, we should have been a republic. Last day of 1999, December 31st, it was 1st of January 2000, at the turn of the millennium, we should have been a republic and relegated all our... You know, Uncle Connie pledged allegiance to the King of England and his heirs. You know, our Prime Minister, brothers Canadians, our Prime Minister pledged allegiance not to the Constitution and the people of Canada, but to the King of England and his heirs. Pledged allegiance to the King of England and his heirs. Our Prime Minister Connie pledged allegiance to the King of England and his heirs. Can you imagine? Should have been a republic long ago, eh? We're gonna be an imperial democratic republic, which lay the foundations for those trillions of kisses as we're gonna march to the mountain on December 24th, 25th, you know. December 24th, 25th, and that is just the dynamics where we are now to be, consequently, and of course in the relationship of where we have now, and coast to coast, ocean to ocean, that those are the dynamics which we have to constitute in all the appellations, the constituencies where we have to be relegating, and we have of course to be ourselves, and all those dynamics of now that now exist, social, cultural, and financially, economically. The majority of Canadians, including myself, are living paycheck to paycheck, financially stressed. My fourth bill to pay, I got a few days, you know, I got to pay it this week, and I think by next Monday, actually, Monday or Tuesday. I got 2 weeks notice last week, so I'm gonna check if it was Wednesday or Thursday that I got the first notice. So 14 days, I was given 2 weeks, so I have to go rush it, pay it, I think by Tuesday latest. Next Tuesday. Today's Tuesday, 14th of October, so because I already paid my electricity bill, go Hydro-Quebec Go, paid my rent, paid my Netflix special reduced tariff, and that's what we gotta say. Smells like some burning there. So yeah, I predicted what's happening now, and what I did not predict, I have to be honest and say that it worries me that our relations have deteriorated with the United States. So the deterioration of relations with the United States, I did not predict. I did not predict that deterioration. of relations with the United States. So that is also new for me as well. It's new for me as well. I did not predict that we're going to be designated, and we are since August 1st, as an unusual and extraordinary threat, and the motives given there by the Trump administration is the fact that fentanyl has crossed the amount of fentanyl which has crossed has tripled from last year 2024, and the fact that our law enforcement agencies, which of course I'm assuming is a reference to the RCMP, which is our federal police, to the RCMP of course, and the other proposition of course was that there was a lack of coordination. Now coordination implies cooperation. When you cooperate, you don't necessarily coordinate. But when you coordinate, right, you automatically cooperate. Not necessarily when you cooperate. So you might coordinate by action. Well, you can cooperate by trading information, exchanging knowledge, wisdom, and not necessarily by action. And of course, the mention is there also of growing super labs run by transnational criminal syndicate organized groups. And since 2015, the RCMP, our Royal Canadian Mounted Police, the Mounties, have warned us since 2015. And just last year, this October 25th is going to mark 1 year since the RCMP dismantled, bravo, 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 good job, good job, good job, good job, good job. The RCMP dismantled the biggest ever drug super lab in Canadian history last year. What if this transnational criminal syndicate organized group was running 5 labs? They only dismantled 1. That means there's 4 to go. 4 to go, 4 to go, 4 to go, 4 to go. Which can be one, it can be in Quebec, the other one in Manitoba, the other one in Yukon, the other one in the prairies or somewhere, of course, in Nova Scotia. Right? So, this one super lab in Surrey, BC that the RCMP dismantled, which was the biggest ever in Canadian history, produced enough doses of fentanyl, listen to this, 95 million doses, which could have killed potentially the twice over. You imagine that this is a crisis. Imagine just now one super lab, it could have potentially killed the population of Canada twice over. I can't believe it. One super lab produced enough fentanyl to kill us twice, the population of Canada. More and more I'm designated as a hardcore emergency and crisis. And what if this transnational criminal syndicate organized group was financed by exterior forces who are antagonistic due to the DMAA theory? If you don't know what I'm making a reference to, it is my philosophy, my work tool known as the DMAA, Direct Military Assistance and Action, which is pertinent, of course, to NATO member countries. I'm going to hydrate and discuss it. But what if this transnational criminal syndicate organized group was, of course, mass financed by covert police, secret police authorities, by other countries such as XYZ, ABC, Russia or China or Russia or anywhere else, of course, in order to harm our population here in Canada, coast to coast, ocean to ocean. And more I'm designating this fentanyl as a bioweapon rather than a drug. This one super lab could have killed the amount of fentanyl which the RCMP seized and dismantled and destroyed. Well, I don't know if they destroyed it, but they seized it. Could have killed the population of Canada twice over. It's just unbelievable. Unbelievable. Imagine it could have ended up with children, killing children in daycares. And I wrote a few children's books. I just didn't have the $500 in order to publish them. But I'm an artist as well, but I didn't have the $500 for the literary agent. But what if it could have killed children in daycares, which could have maybe one day, maybe sooner than later, read Adrian Hanna Dragon's books, which my books for children are usually related to Hydro-Quebec, to civilization and nature, but with rhythm and dancing and thematics, Okay, I hydrated, came into the light, going back into the darkness. In the backpack, I got those red gloves by my anonymous friend who wasn't my friend because of the money, so I'm auctioning them for $1 million to give her half, and back into the darkness we go. Gonna discuss the DMA, but it's alarming that we're designated as an unusual and extraordinary threat. And again, the mention of super labs, growing super labs as a reality of domestic production in Canada, of fentanyl by those super labs, is mentioned in the August 1st White House official dictum of the Trump administration. And we are designated, Canada, this is new, this never happened in recent history, that we're designated as an unusual and extraordinary threat to the American people. This is no joke here. This is national security. And I'm always for the 10, the 50, and the 3. My initiative protocols are always for Canada, United States joint. Binational security, because this is a statement that I'm going to make now, geopolitical one, is fundamental essence and wisdom. Of course it is. You have to say and affirm in a positive manner. Yes, 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 yes. Yes, you cannot say no, no, no. You cannot, of course, negate it, but you have to affirm it in the positive. So our main interest, Canadians and United States vis-a-vis Canada, and Canada vis-a-vis United States, when it comes to foreign affairs, not domestic affairs, if we are to establish a priority with whom we have to work to establish the best economic, social, financial, defense, security, commercial, military, defense, trade relations with, for Canada is the United States as a country, because of our social cultural realities, our past historical and present and future historical realities, and our geographical reality, because we have 2 oceans. To the east we have the Atlantic, to the west we have the Pacific. Now I'm marching west. When I was marching earlier before towards that light, I was marching east. Now I'm marching back west. It's east, west, northwest, east, west, west, east, east, west, west, east, east and west and east, and north and north for me on this island of Montreal. So for the United States vis-a-vis Canada, although you have a border with Mexico, it is with us that my brothers and sisters in the 50 states have to establish the work to establish the best economic, social, financial relations with. Right? That's just the reality. That's just the reality. You have to work to establish the best economic, social, financial reality with me, and me with you, and us with you, me, US, as a North American collective civilizational complex, which again, my philosophy is we are an emergent civilizational collective, which is not divorced from Western civilization, but we are distinct, because we come from many, many nation states and throughout the world, and we are emergent, right? We are in many ways a new civilizational complex. That's why the king gotta go, the king is absent. That's olden Western civilization. We are a new emergent civilizational collective, because we are a new civilizational collective where we also manage in the collective and the individual, sacrosanctity and liberty of the individual in harmony and well-being, one for the other for the one as a collective. That's why the 21st century in the collective North American civilization, my way to fuse Canada, United States best in a mass public-private partnership, because we have to rebalance the public and the private. And of course, it takes action and brains, because theory, I can sit in a chair and discuss, but some muscles are on the ground. Some brains and muscle now, the truckers, the firefighters, the butchers, the bakers. It takes, as we move to our AI and automation, then we're going to move to finance, tourism, and leisure activities and fitness activities. And that's where the technology will come and finance people to work out, such as Do My Workout, which I created. It takes about an hour. Credit 50 UEs, standardized food costs by the UE, and implement my DRT theory. It's a grand vision. It's a dancing goddess and the dragon kingdom. It's a new one as well. Although we are not divorced from Western civilization, we're not totally divorced, but we are distinct. And my brothers and sisters who are blacks, if you're white, black, or rainbow, in my army, I want to have blacks and whites and rainbows and men and women, in both of my armies. And my neighbors are black, part of 13.4% of the North Canada, United States, both parallel population. The same, my brothers and sisters are blacks, If you're black or white or rainbow, if you're a man, woman, play that black and white and rainbow, you want to be friends with benefits, or pledge your allegiance, legions, we're family. Here in the new collective, It's interesting that I was checking out the military parade of China, and I still have to do a revision, but it was the grandest one that I ever seen China display. I guess there was them making a statement, and we have to accord it and say, yes, China is now a superpower. China is now, today, in 2025, China is a superpower, whether we like it or not. I have no antagonistic, I know China's philosophies, governance of China and XYZ. Gotta salute our public security as I sing that rock and roll for the public security. And when you hear the sirens for the public security, the firefighters, the ambulances do the 3 full circle citizen integrated protocol, 180 degrees to the left, 180 degrees to the right, to make sure everybody's safe and in liberty, on the highways. And we have to rebuild our highways and our infrastructure. So as much as I know, and if you want to have a conversation about China, you have to have read a little bit, be knowledgeable about the governance of China, which are at least the first 4 volumes, because now there's a 5th in the making, but I don't know if it's officially published yet, but since last year there were 4 volumes, volume 1, 2, 3, 4, at least a general knowledge of the governance of China, which are basically Xi Jinping's writings and teachings, and based on Marxist-Leninism or communism with socialist characteristics, and Mao Zedong thought and philosophies, such as the Red Book and exponents in the 21st century. So you have to have a little knowledge about that. If not, I'm gonna have to postpone our conversation until you get acquainted about and with the governance of China. Because to have a discussion about 21st century China, you have to know about the literature, the thoughts, the philosophies, the ideologies written in the governance of China. And you can find the audiobook. It's basically Xi Jinping, which took power in 2012. 2012, Xi Jinping, the current leader, paramount leader of China, took power over China in the 21st century. So my main interest is, of course, us here in the collective. Myself as an individual who has lived my individual struggles and pains and sufferings and depression and suicidal and losing friends, losing jobs, and moving from that moldy place where there's lots of mold. I didn't even have a bathtub. It was like a small prison cell. I moved in 2015, 10 years ago, and I can't remember much prior to January, February 2014, it's a trouble, but that's a long time ago, so it doesn't really matter. My work over the past 11 years, and my 4th rebirth now is, I also died during COVID, and what matters is what I'm going to discuss now the most. My theories, which I've been calling for years and years and years and years, at least for more than 4 years now during COVID, the TRT theory, death refusion theory, part of the Dancing Goddess in the Dragon Kingdom, to be implemented in the CIT, Citizen Integration Theory, and the DRT, Death Refusion Theory, with the DFT, Democratic Fusion Theory, and the new North American Dragon 911 Total Dragon Security Service and Defense Protocols for total incorporation of security service and defense by the mobilization of a percentage of a population and integration across all levels of security institutions and services for total SSD, security service and defense, and mass financing tourism. And of course, to conclude it in the sphere where we are now, in the relationships of where we do live now in the moment, and to be for the apparatus, of course, in the coming days, weeks, and months ahead, is going to move towards our new world order from the island of the Hawk, as I'm calling for the Dragon Carney, Trump Carney Dragon, and the leaders of the free world and the leaders of NATO, both public and private corporations and institutions, my Scorpio brother Bill Gates, on the 24th, 25th of December. Let's make it on the big summit. 24th, 25th of December for our empire. Pledge your allegiance, legions. Our family, pledge your allegiance, legions. Our family, and we have to constitute to do, and we have to get that integration, and I have to discuss now the direct military assistance in action. pay attention to the DMAA. It's super important that it's just going to be a general informative discussion of my philosophy, my theory, my working. It's a working tool for NATO. The DMAA stands for Direct Military Assistance and Action. DMAA, Direct Military Assistance and Action. D for D, direct, M, military, A for action or assistance and action can be inversed. It could be action or assistance and action, or both. It is strictly relevant when NATO is involved in a military manner by action or assistance. It has nothing to do with humanitarian matters, such as providing humanitarian assistance or other such things which are of a humanitarian nature, such as, of course, food, shelter, things of that nature. It has nothing to do with that, providing those things. It has to do with providing, of course, the other things which I mentioned, which are, of course, military, which can kill the adversarial army. And it has to do with NATO countries such as Canada assisting Ukraine with helmets, drones, armaments, munitions, weapons, and, of course, armored vehicles. Because Ukraine, Israel, other countries, Pakistan, Taiwan, India, etc., are not part of NATO. Now, before October 7, 2023, before October 7th, 2023, I was advocating for Israel to, of course, join NATO. Simultaneously with Mexico, respectively, as the 32nd and 33rd. Now, last year, Sweden joined. I was advocating for what I called in 4-part lecture series Genesis 33. Genesis 33. Genesis 33. Genesis 33 Protocol and NATO Protocol Initiative. Genesis 33 NATO Protocol Initiative. Based on the biblical verses of those twins, Jacob and Esau, and they made a pact and alliance years afterwards, and they kind of kissed and embraced, and they made a military alliance and a pact. The twins, Jacob became Israel, right? And Israel and Jacob, the biblical story. Jacob, the 12 tribes of Israel, that's the claim, right? But if you read the Bible, Genesis chapter 33, that was the name of the Protocol Initiative when I was calling for both Israel and Mexico to simultaneously join NATO before October 7th. But after October 7th, of course, the surprise attack, which Israel calls as 9/11, well, technically a country cannot join NATO while in a state of war, because then what do NATO countries do? Does Article 5 apply? But you understand, technically a country at war with another country cannot really join NATO, right? Because then NATO would have to get involved, because Article 5 would have to be invoked, because then that country will attack that country, right? They're at war, so it would be, you get what I'm saying? Although when a NATO country is attacked, Article 5 has to be invoked. And Article 5 was only invoked once in the 75-year history of NATO. September 11th. September 11th was the one and only time that Article 5 was invoked. September 11th was the one and only time that, of course, Article 5 was invoked. September 11th. September 11th was, of course, the one and only time that Article 5 was invoked. September 11th. So back to the DMAA, Direct Military Assistance and Action. The Direct Military Assistance and Action is, of course, the DMAA, Direct Military Assistance and Action. Direct Military Assistance and Action has to do with NATO assisting in a military manner, adversarial, assisting, such as the case with Ukraine, several NATO member countries in Canada or other countries. And that has the C, the DMAA, Direct Military Assistance, in parentheses has a C, which is the consequence, which potentially adversarial countries which are supported by NATO, those antagonistic. C, the consequence is that, for example, Russia, Ukraine, Russia utilizes secret police, financial matters to hack, create sabotage, or even finance transnational criminal syndicate organized groups, such as the one that was dismantled last year, the biggest ever by the RCMP, where that one super lab had enough doses of fentanyl to kill the population of Canada twice over. You realize more and more designating fentanyl as a bioweapon. And in 2019, we legalized. We got good cannabis. We got good hashish. I mean, I don't do drugs. I don't smoke. I don't know if before winter, January, February 2014, maybe that's why I have trouble remembering my life, because of maybe I was an alcoholic, maybe I was a junkie, because I know I lived in that moldy small place, like a tight prison cell, for at least 4 or 5 years, because I got some documents from 2010. So I don't know if I was a junkie or not, but whatever I was, I'm an artist, athlete, philosopher, geopolitical. I love my wafers, love my sweets. I would love massage therapy sessions. And I bought 3.5 years ago cannabis. I smoked a bit, but I still have leftovers. I don't smoke much. It's not for me that much, you know. I like a bottle of wine with some food, and I have a glass or 2 or 3 and 4 glasses of wine max. Four small glasses, I meant. That's what I can take. Besides that, I'm good. I guess I'm Aspie drunk on the goddess's pussy juice from above stars, pussy juice from above, star juice from a pussy juice from above stars, pussy juice from above the stars. But the DMAA is a serious matter, eh? That's when it comes to geopolitics. It's more serious, because geopolitics is 24/7, eh? The sun never sleeps, money never sleeps, geopolitics never sleeps. Because now there's a sunrise in Asia, right? There's a sunset here. There's a sunrise over China, Japan, North and South Korea, Australia, India. They're having Wednesday morning in Asia. In India, Japan, Australia, China, North and South Korea, it's morning there. So they're having their own diplomacies and their own geopoliticking going on now, eh? So 3 things never sleep. Money never sleeps. The sun always rises and sunsets every second, in geopolitics. So the DMAA, I just introduced it slightly, but it has to be applied, as the motto of NATO is Animus in Consuelo Liber. That means, stands for a mind unfettered in deliberation. So my protocol theory, that known as the DMAA, as I just explained it slightly, but it's hours and hours and hours of lecturing on it. The DMAA, Direct Military Assistance in Action, has and is, of course, to be implemented in the NATO protocols for further deliberation, whether we consult, whether we take deliberate efforts, of course, to implement it, or to take action, or to assist in the future. Because another consequence is Russia, China solidifying their alliance. Russia and China. The solidification of Russia and China's alliance is a major development. A consequence of the DMAA is a major consequence of the DMAA, of the Direct Military Assistance in Action. So now I'm going to finish on the DMAA, and we're going to discuss the DRT, the Debt Refusion Treaty. But again, the Direct Military Assistance in Action has a consequence, and it's not just a theory, it's a working tool, it's a protocol, referential protocol, whether we are to take action or assist in the future non-NATO member countries, because of the potential consequences which can be devastating. Of course, you wonder why China in the past 5 years almost doubled their nuclear arsenal in just such a short amount of time. Mass investment, mass solidification of the SCO, Shanghai Cooperation Organization. That can also be a consequence of the DMAA. The BRICS solidifying and expansion of BRICS, even though they want to create a common currency. So now I'm going to discuss the DRT, the Debt Refusion Theory. Super important that we implement the DRT binationally, because it's part of the binational, or what I call the bipolar geopolitical strategy for total BDD, benevolent dominance and dominion of the world, for world peace, and via fusion Canada, United States into the 63 Imperial States projects complex for total security, total service, total defense, not to be confused with psychiatric, psychological bipolar condition. It has nothing to do with that. It's merely a geopolitical strategy. So we're going to discuss the DRT. debt refusion theory. Now we have to implement the DRT binationally because both Canada and United States, my brothers and sisters in both Canada and United States, suffer from, of course, the main problems which Canada and United States suffer from, the main Canada, of course, which both Canada and United States suffer from. It is, of course, the componential suffering of both, their sufferings thereof, of both our citizenry, both Canadians and my brothers and sisters in the USA, suffer, of course, compromitally in the side, of course, where we are now, in the dynamics where we are to be living, that the vast majority suffer from these four problems. That is the growing cost of living, growing cost of rents. Even my rent went up, of course, between 6 and 10. I'm not going to divulge exactly by how much my rent went up. I'm just going to say between 6 and 10, of course, 6 and 10, and of course all that domains where we are now to be concomitantly about. That is the growing cost of rents, growing cost of bacon, food, everything, life expenses, cheese, milk, growing cost of rents, growing cost of food, cost of living, cost of rents, the stagnation of the salaries, and the fourth one, in whatever order you put these, is the growing credit card debt. So these four main problems affect now, and increasingly so over the past 3.5 years, vast majority of both my brothers and sisters in Canada, coast to coast, and my brothers and sisters in the 50 states. So the DRT is the solution, and the only solution, or something which resembles fundamentally my DRT theory, has, of course, to be implemented, of course, in the domains, of course, where we got now to be consequentially in the prudence, of course, in the realization of being now. So, of course, the DRT includes monetary integration theory. The DRT, debt refusion theory, includes monetary integration theory. Monetary integration theory. MIT, monetary integration theory. The monetary integration theory is, of course, the realization, of course, where we are now to be inside and to be conclusive about. So the DRT includes monetary integration theory, and the monetary integration theory is, of course, the financial theory which was implemented in the European Union. Implemented in the European Union. In the 90s, they destroyed Germany, Italy, France, Belgium. They destroyed their national central banks. Of course, they destroyed the national central banks. And of course, due to the fact that they destroyed their national central banks, that of course the creation of the ECB, the common central bank for many countries, became a reality in, of course, the European Union back, of course, in the 90s. So, of course, that relationship, of course, is the relationship which we have, of course, to be now on the dynamics. So, of course, all that applicable, of course, all the institutional creation of this public-private partnership. That's why my brother Bill Gates, Scorpio Bill Gates of BlackRock, RBC, Royal Bank of Canada, Blackstone, or other financial institutions which are both public and private will be required for this, implementing my DRT, which is the solution, and the great solution, because we're gonna do great things by implementing it parallel to the CIT, citizen integration theory, and the DFT, democratic fusion theory, and of course the DFT, democratic fusion theory, and other theories which we're gonna implement. So I'm not gonna discuss it. So we're gonna take all the public and the private debt, my $10,000, your $10,000, and coast to coast, ocean to ocean, my $10,000, your $10,000. We're gonna take, of course, all the public and the private debt, my 10,000, your 10,000, coast to coast, all that debt, Canada coast to coast. We're gonna add it all up, and we're gonna convert it into US dollars. We're gonna convert it into US dollars, right? Convert it into US dollars, and all that money converted into US dollars, we're going to add it with all the public-private debt of the United States and all the money that exists in circulation. Right? In circulation. So of course, all of it, that's gonna be the initial money supply for a new central bank. For a new central bank. Whatever we name this new central bank, we can name it the Imperial Central Bank or North American Central Bank. We're gonna issue the Imperial dollar, or rather the UE, because that's what money is, whether it's a shekel, a Australian dollar, a Canadian dollar, a US dollar, whatever the case may be, a shekel, or of course whatever the case may be. In another, of course, component where we have, of course, it could be something else called, but of course that's what money is. It's a unit of exchange. It's to buy, sell. So the UE, we're going to create the UE and issue in the market a new currency, the UE. U.universal E.exchange U.UE. U.universal E.exchange U.UE. The universal exchange unit. U.universal E.exchange U.UE. UE. U.universal E.exchange U.UE. The UE. U.universal E.exchange U.UE. U.universal E.exchange U.UE. The universal exchange unit. The UE is going to have the value of the US dollar. We're going to set an interest rate level of 10% thereafter on all loans. With this money, we're going to rebuild the infrastructure, the bridges. We're going to build more hydroelectric dams. We're going to build the infrastructure. We're going to build the roads. We're going to build, of course, mass finance citizens' fitness, mass finance citizens to work, mass finance citizens to exercise, mass finance the rehabilitation of the criminal population, what I call the Imperial Criminal Rehabilitation Act. If you have 44 convictions in the past 11 years and a half, since February to March 2014, then instead of the amnesty, Imperial criminal amnesty protocols, we're going to implement the Imperial Dracula protocols. If you have more than 44 convictions, and we're going to also build 44 tunnels, mass finance the building of 44 tunnels in case of a thermonuclear war. In case of a thermonuclear war, we're going to mass build 44 tunnels on the ground. In case of a thermonuclear war, we're going to mass build 44 tunnels in case of a thermonuclear war. So that's going to be a little bit of good working across North America. We're going to get rid of the border, fuse the RCMP and the FBI. Fuse the RCMP and the FBI. The RCMP and the FBI, we're going to fuse, create the Imperial Police Force for total SSD. We're going to create the two complementary covenant cooperative institutions. The Dragon Army, aka Imperial Integrated Dance League, with the DGA Dancing Goddess Army, aka Imperial Integrated Dance League, to dancing for environmental education. We're gonna get rid of the border, do a census, do a great census, do a great population census, do a great population census. C, of course, do create a new currency, the CUE, a new passport, common passport. We could be extending it. We could be extending it from Canada, United States, extending the whole course, integrated with health, with driver's license, health, banking, of course, integrated ID card with the eyes and the eye scanners, and it could be also digital and part, of course, the card as we have them today. So that's what we're gonna do. We're gonna mass create that, and that's what we're gonna do together. Mass finance. Fitness, mass finance citizens to workout, train, exercise, and we're gonna mass finance citizens, my workout training program system. We're gonna mass finance, of course, the fitness activities, and we're gonna mass finance citizens to workout, train, exercise. We're gonna get rid of the border, US border. We fuse the RCMP and the FBI, and we're also gonna mass finance citizens tourism. We're gonna every 4 months. Well, actually, it's going to be every 4 times a year. So for spring, for winter, for summer, for spring, for winter, of course. Summer, spring, winter, summer, spring, the 4 seasons: spring, summer, autumn, winter, autumn. For the 4 seasons is going to be, of course, on the side, of course, what we're going to do. So, of course, it's going to be the integrator of the complex to do, of course, these 4. We're going to mass finance this rehabilitation, and of course we're going to finance tourism, mass tourism. We're going to mass finance tourism activities, of course. We're going to mass finance, of course, the tourist activities, mass finance, of course, the protocols, of course, of the rehabilitation, of course, the mass finance, of course. We're going to have to be having them, of course, in the financial aspects and the propositions where we are now. So we're going to finance for all citizens of the coming of our empire is four times a year, 4 days, 4 times 4, 16 days. Every spring, every summer, every winter, every autumn, we're gonna finance 4 days for food, housing, and lodging. Basically 4 nights. If you spend past midnight a second, if you're traveling by train, by plane, that counts as a day. 1 second past midnight. So you better get to the hotel at 11:59. But you can get at 11 at 10, whatever. But it's 4 nights. 4 nights with lodging, right? Lodging, housing, hotel, motel, where everything, food, but don't expect caviar and caviar and champagne and caviar all the time, just food, just breakfast, lunch, and dinner, 3 times 3 meals a day. I'm just gonna hamburger it, keep it simple, fast food, different fast foods, different hamburgers, different pizza, cheeseburgers, whatever the case may be. So I'm gonna keep it on that fast food or pizzas or fries. That's gonna be good with me, and that's gonna be the financing, of course, of tourism 4 times a year, every season. So every spring 4 days, every summer 4 days, every autumn 4 days, every winter. So every citizen of the empire, once it's 16, will be automatically accorded this imperial tourist privilege. This will rejuvenate us, will establish a strong esprit de corps, and he can go from Quebec to California, from California to Yukon, from Yukon to Florida, from all across the 63, because we're going to finance this imperial tourism project via public-private partnership and the DRT. It's going to take a few steps, because I think there's somebody there with the children, so you know how I do. I take a few steps to the side, and then I correlate to go to the bridge there. So this imperial tourism protocol will foster a strong esprit de corps, will rejuvenate us, will rehabilitate us, will rehabilitate so we can travel anywhere across Canada, United States, across the United States, Canada, across Canada, United States, wherever one citizen wills. 4 days, you can take 4 days 4 times a year, or you can accumulate 8 times twice a year, or 16 days. Once you get to 44, it's use them or lose them. So this imperial protocol, imperial tourism ministry, via my debt refusion tree, we're gonna do great things. So now we're gonna get on this bridge and pledge your allegiance to our family, friends will benefit so. Yeah.